Welcome to my grandpa's train. I'm Tim. You probably saw the front of this engine already when you clicked on the video. Let me explain where this came from and what I think had been done to this to cause such deformation. Occasionally, I browse local antique malls for the random chance that a cheap train will be on the shelf. Usually, I do not buy trains at antique malls since they tend to be priced too high. However, when I found this, that was not the case. It was on Black Friday, so everything was on sale. So I saw an opportunity here as a good price for an in-depth restoration project, and that's exactly what I got. Now, as you can see, the entire shell is in horrible condition, especially where it was damaged. There must be a story behind how this happened. I can imagine this engine was running too fast on a track too close to the edge of the table and most likely took a dive to the floor. This would both crack the shell and bend the frame, both of which happened here. The front link coupler bar is broken off, which likely took a direct hit. Well, okay, so the engine was dropped. That doesn't explain why it looks like it was melted. My best guess is that someone tried repairing the cracks with Bondo or some other kind of fiberglass filler. This was not a good idea, since these fillers usually contain solvents which can melt plastic. And we can see this shell has been melted. If I turn the shell over, you can see the fiberglass crystals flaking off of the plastic on the inside. Unfortunately, the damage to the shell is probably irreparable. So that leaves me two choices. Either wait for a shell to show up on eBay, or cut out the damage completely and replace it with sheet aluminum. For this video, however, I am going to focus on reassembling the frame and rebuilding the motor. Let's get started. This is the GP7 teardown and restoration project. What I'm going to attempt to complete today is to get the motor back together and all the components on the frame and have an operating frame. The shell is an entirely another matter. That will probably not be completed today. In fact, it may be some time before I get it completed to cosmetically, shall we say, looks good. Because right now it looks pretty awful. Okay, I'm going to start putting this motor back together. And so we'll get this motor going and see if I can get this train to run around tracks. So I got the motor mostly put back together for the GP7. I had to do a little bit of clever reinforcing on this brush plastic plate. This plate was split on the side that you're seeing here. So what I ended up doing is reinforcing it with a teeny tiny piece of this here. This is Plastruct L. It's like 1/16 size plastic pieces, and I glued one on the inside of that, and then just now I glued a tiny strip of aluminum on the outside with super glue. That should reinforce that because the plastic was splitting, and pretty soon the brush spring would push the plastic far enough that it wouldn't hold the brush in place. So I'm going to let this sit and dry probably overnight. So that's as far as the motor has gotten, and then I'll show you this as well. This is the reverser that I have taken apart completely and cleaned and lubricated, and now it appears to be mechanically functioning correctly. So the next thing I'm going to do is put this back into the locomotive frame. While I'm waiting for the motor to finish drying, the brush bracket, I'm going to attempt to straighten out this link bar for this assembly here, and I will do that more or less using a pliers, if I can find one that fits in there. It should be just a matter of pulling this the correct way and getting it straightened out. And with the magic of a computer and editing, the link bar is more or less straight. I'll probably tweak it a little bit more before I final assemble the locomotive, but now it appears to be in much better shape. Part 1 of my first GP7 restoration is complete. It really pays off to tear down these diesel motors all the way and thoroughly clean them. These tend to be a lot more finicky than steam engine motors. They're a lot more delicate, the wire gauge is finer, and then I also pulled apart the reverse unit all the way down to the drum and scrubbed it clean, and it is functioning properly. So I'm going to take this over to the tracks and do a track test with this locomotive, and then part 1 of this restoration will be complete. I still have a few things to put back onto the frame, and then this engine will be able to pull trains around. Part 2 of the restoration will be the repair and restoration of the shell, which is going to take a lot more work than the motor actually took. So stay tuned for that. But for now, let's take this to the track and test it out.